Thank you very much. First, I want to heartily and warmly greet all of you in here, especially the founding father and founding president of this institution, my colleague, if I can put it that way, Dr. Ashok Chauhan, who is one of the rare persons who actually made his dream being alive. A lot of us have dreams, and what differs us, how much and how big dreams that we have are becoming our reality. And you obviously showed us that you were not being able only to have big dreams, but you were able to make those big dreams our common reality. And that's why I want to thank you personally for your commitment to your own dreams. I was very nicely introduced here in a lot of my former and current capacities and interests. I was this morning, of course, being first day in Delhi, first time in India, paying tribute to the great founding father of modern mankind, Mahatma Gandhi. And when I was gifted by a book, his autobiography, it reminded me of one of the lines from that autobiography, how humble and modest only great men can be. And he was having, as he was admitting himself, great people are admitting their liabilities. And it reminded me in his book how he was very nervous to be talking in front of more than 4 or 5 people. And he said he was gifted for that because it saved him not to say a lot of things that he would be sorry about if he was not having that fear. Now, staying in front of you, when I, in such a distinguished and such a honorable audience, I'm a politician, I'm professor. First of all, I'm professor. I'm a politician as my hobby. I don't play golf. I was heavily wounded in a war in besieged city, Sarajevo, as an acting prime minister and deputy minister, being shot while I was walking on the main pedestrian street, getting out of my lecture, to meet UN general who was running the peacekeeping forces. And I know one thing that war taught me, and what we went through, is it's very easy to inherit a lot of things. It's very easy to inherit a lot of things that are materialized. But you can lose everything in a second. The only thing you cannot lose are the things that you carry in your heart and in your head and your brain. I was very privileged to have a lot of my heart and feeling my heart through the last period of my life. But talking and standing in front of this audience, I was thinking to be much shorter, because to save what I could be saying, which I could be sorry of. But since I was such a nicely introduced, I have to continue and say a few words about a few things. About my country, about part of the world which I'm coming from, and about my feelings, sincere feelings about India and about your great nation, and what is connecting us and putting us together. What is also the role of education and new technologies in our future life? Do we have to care about some things? Do we have some questions that we should have in mind? First of all, I want to say that speaking about Bosnia and Herzegovina, we are a small country. We are a country with 4 million people, very complicated country. 4 million people that are living in Europe. That's 8 years after we were organizing Winter Olympics in 1984, the best organized Winter Olympics in history until that time. 8 years later, we ended in a war that put us on a CNN again after Olympics. We went through a lot. We went through a lot which we wish and we hope and we'll do everything in our power that no one ever goes through through anything similar than us. But in order to do so, we have to think about a few things. First, we have to think about what are the things that are putting us together. And there's a reason why Bosnia and Herzegovina, as multi-ethnic, multicultural country of 4 million people in Europe that went through such a tragedy, can learn from such a great nation like India is. If more than a billion of you, with such a diversities, that there is no computer that can calculate diversities that you have among yourselves. And with all those diversities, you are living in democracy, and you are living in a society, which is society in which your diversities are not your liability, but one of the big assets that you have. We can learn a lot from you. We have to learn from you, and all world has to learn from you. All world has to learn from the positive examples of diversities being living and admitting those diversities as assets, not as liabilities. What education can do to respect, what technology can do to that respect. Computer technology, after all, I'm officially smart for that, which does not mean that I'm so, but officially I have a license for it. I learned a long time ago that first bizarre thing about computer is that that machine, when it was invented, it was given the name computer because it was computing. But let's assume that those years ago, if that machine did not get a name, if we would have to give the name to that machine today, that would definitely not get the name computer, because that machine, among other things, does compute, but that's not what computers are about today. And computers are probably one of the, as far as I can recall, one of the very few, if not the only one, invention that does have no purpose, does have no meaning when you get it in front of you. What you do with it is the purpose of that machine. Every machine, this pen, the hammer, the car, every machine, every invention has a purpose. But computer has a purpose depending on what we do with it and in what context we put it. And there's a reason why I think that, especially people who are in technology area, we have to think a lot about how technology can make us being better people. How technology and education can make us changing the world so the world is better. And if we have, let's say, 3 elements of the model of modern society, if we have social aspect of modern society, if we have economic aspect of modern, and if we have technology as a third parameter that is defining one society, we all know very well that technology is changing so fast. And there's a reason why we call it revolution. Economy, if economy changes fast, we also call this miracolo. We call it miracle. Because economy can change, but not that fast as technology. When it comes to the social and human nature, that is something which is changing the slowest way. So for us who are so much familiar with technology and who are aware of making business plans and feasibility studies which include economy in it, we have to think a lot about how that affects social fiber in our society. Does technology that we are putting in between us, is it the mechanism of making us better people, being more free, being more creative, being better, not only to ourselves, but being better to each other? And that's one of the challenges that we who are working with technology have to think about. One of my famous economists is my old friend, Jeffrey Sachs, who has marvelous books, and especially one of his books, I think Global Wealth, one of his latest books. He had a very interesting introduction in which he said that we are living in a bizarre time, which is a combination of Stone Age emotions, medieval age beliefs, and almost godlike technologies. Obviously, we did not change a lot in certain aspect from Stone Age. We did not change a lot from medieval age, but we are changing with technology. So we have to think about what we do with it, and that's the reason why I'm coming to the final point, which is society. What is the society we want to live in, And what are the relations in between us that we want to flourish, guard, protect, and share? So we are coming to the concept of why India for me is so important. Because my country is so important for me, like your country for you. But your great country is important for us because I see a lot of reasons why we have to learn from you being united in diversity. And I'll close with this comparison. Since my country is a democratic country. I'm one of the proofs that we are a democratic country. 20 or 30 or 40 years ago in that part of the world, if you're a politician, if you're a prime minister, foreign minister, whatever, if you lose your chair, your position, you end in jail, you don't be eaten by lions, but you actually disappear from the scene. The fact that I was twice prime minister, twice deputy prime minister, twice foreign minister shows that we are democracy. I was in between the position. So it means that we really are democracy, but that's not what is enough. We used to be under different historical circumstances, one society. We lived for 500 years under Ottoman Empire. And we as Christians, Catholics, Orthodox, Jews, and Muslims, we lived in one society. We were different. We had our differences, cultural differences, religious differences, but we lived in one society. Then we lived for about 50 years under Austro-Hungarian Empire. And we again lived in one society with our differences. Then we lived in kingdom, Yugoslav kingdom, we kept living in one society. Then we lived after Ottoman Austro-Hungarian kingdom, we lived in communism under President Tito, and we lived in one society. Then 22 years ago, we started living in democracy. And someone told us that when you are living in democracy, you cannot live in one society. You have to be starting living in segregated societies. You have to divide in order to be normally accepting and cooperating. That's the reason why it took us to get into war, because the forces of segregated societies were fighting against the forces of shared society. So if we cannot live in shared society with all our differences, united in diversities, in 21st century, with new technology, with such a strong economy, with democracy, and we lived in one society under different dictatorship or non-democratic systems, then the conclusion can be very scary. The conclusion not for Bosnia and Herzegovina, conclusion for Europe, and conclusion for every person who wants to be showing that third millennium is better than the previous one. That's the reason why I do strongly think that the values and ideas of shared society, in which we are united in our diversities, with a strong use, positive use, thinking while using technology, promoting education, promoting the values that we share, promoting those ideas. This is the key for not future of you or me or any one of us. This is the key for future of any one of us. And this is the key of the future for all of us. So we have to change. We have to do changes. We have to do changes in trying to living and promoting values of shared society. Trying to change our emotions. Trying to change our beliefs. And trying that our emotion, our beliefs are catching up with technology. Not technology is driving our beliefs and our emotions. And as much as we do make cohabitation of those things, of those concepts, of those values, that's how much we have chance. Shared society is a concept which I learned from one great man who I had the privilege, who helped us to stop the war in Balkan, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. His name is Bill Clinton. 7-8 years ago, I was elected in Club de Madrid, which is one NGO that consists out of 90 former heads of states and governments who are promoting democratic values all over the world. And I learned from Clinton, who was very much connected with Bosnia and Herzegovina, because he was the man who was running the United States when they stopped the war in Balkan and my country. And he was the one who 6-7 years ago in one of our sessions, one of our annual gatherings, said, I thought, and we did a lot in order to sort out and talk about issues of energy, because energy and distribution of energy is, especially after his friend Al Gore got a Nobel Peace Prize for his famous work, he said, the energy is something that we have to care about, energy itself, then about distribution of energy. But if we don't sort it out, we may explode. But then I figured out, wait a second, we have another problem. The problem has nothing to do with the energy. The problem has to do with us, with human beings. And the problem has to do with the fact that today in the modern world, more than 90% of the countries have more than 10% of the people who are along some identity, mathematically speaking, minority in that country. We have to find a way that all those diversities are being living together. And we have to find a magic formula that mankind shows that it is a mankind. That we are sharing the same values which are making us being members of the shared societies with our different identities, values, and everything that we are different about. So as much as we find the formula of so-called living in shared society, that much we have a chance to do. And the role of institutions like your university is, it's simply something that has no alternative. Institutions like your institution has no alternative in a journey to find a magic formula of shared society, not being laboratory experiment or seminar, but being our reality in our life. And in that sense, the role of your institution is connected with the role of you people who are making that institution. And in that sense, the role of the dreams is simply unreplaceable. So I hope that we will together be brave and have dreams along these values that we are sharing. I hope that the dreams that you, all of us, and you, all of you, and every one of us has, will be bigger and bigger. And I hope, my dear friend, that we will also be able to show that your dream, that is reality, is just the seed for a lot of new, big and dreams who are in search for a shared society in my country, in your country, in all countries in the world, and on the end, in this globe itself. So thank you for making your dream being alive, and hoping and praying and doing everything in my power that there are more dreamers like you, and there are more dreams being fulfilled and becoming our reality. If we do work what we can, if we do all we can on right track, with the right goals, with the right vision, I'm sure that this will be the seed for the future and better mankind. Thank you very much.